Greetings, I'm Raining Moon and this is Oak Moon Grove. I did a house tour video not too long ago, and I know you can see all the plants that I had around. And I live in a little cottage that has a lot of trees outside, and so there is a great amount of shade in my house, and only plants that can survive that dim, low lighting are going to thrive here. So I'm going to share with you in this video low light plants that live in my space. So if you have a space that doesn't have a lot of light and you want to still have plants that can live, here's some ideas for you. I'm going to first start with this is Pothos, and also called the Devil's Ivy, I think, because this is such a hardy plant. It is hard to get rid of um, once it starts to get established, and it is a vining plant. I have several of these plants around my house because they can thrive in very low light conditions and they're perfectly fine. This one has a bunch of little sprouts coming out. I'll show to you another pothos because it comes in several varieties. And here's a more pale pothos, and you can see it vines, like they start climbing the vines. And be careful if you are renting somewhere where you don't want the walls to get messed up, because they start throwing out, see these like little fingers that start attaching to walls or whatever you have around so that they can actually climb up. But this is one of those plants that it's very, very easy. I would say it's like a beginner plant, and um, it's perfectly fine in low light conditions. If I could step back, I know it might appear brighter on the camera, but my bedroom is actually a north facing. It doesn't get an incredible amount of light, even though this is winter time, so the trees are bare, and so there's more light coming through now. But in a few months, when the leaves start to come in the trees, it's going to be very dark in here. And I've had this plant sitting here for the last 2 years, and it has spread and grown. So it seems to be doing quite fine in this lighting. I'm going to move to another low light plant, which is, this one is a really hardy plant. This is a snake plant. You can see, I think it's called something like is it the stepmother's tongue or something like that also. There's a few names, like common names for these plants, but this one literally came from I work in the city, and walking past one of the alleyways, somebody had thrown this as a plug out in an alleyway, and it didn't even have any dirt on it. I don't know how long it was actually sitting there for, but I brought it home, put it in some soil, and it sprouted up even more, and it's still sprouting. You can see little sprouts still coming up. These are brand new from the last month or so, and we're in winter time. So this plant does, I would say, it's not as hardy as the pothos when it comes to lighting, but this one can tolerate some pretty low light conditions. So you can see that's how it grows. And all this is new growth. It just had actually a couple of, like, I think 3 long blades when I brought it home. And this is just over a few months, so it's doing quite well, even in the dead of winter. And moving to the next plant here, which is the arrowhead plant. This is another kind of, it can start growing upwards, and then eventually, a lot of times, it starts to flop and then hang over. So I have another, this is a baby of the mother plant is actually in my kitchen, and she's completely flopped and hanging. So I had to lift up and put her in like a hanging basket so that she would be more comfortable. But this is her youngin, and it came from one little sprout of hers. And look how this thing is taking off. You can also see it has these little, like the Pothos, these little like climbers. So this is also kind of a vining plant, and I think this plant is just so gorgeous. You could see why they call it the arrowhead plant. But this one does lean more towards the light. Although I have the mother plant was actually several feet away from a window, and a dimly lit window, and she was still doing fine. So this is another plant. It's very beautiful. I love the color. It's like a soft green that will do more than okay in low light condition. And so we're going to move to the next one. I'm showing you a lot of the plants in my bedroom because my bedroom is actually pretty dark. This right here is probably one of the darkest corners in the whole house. And I have here growing and thriving. This is a ZZ plant. Really cool plant. And this one has thrown out so many sprouts that I have pulled a second plant from it. And I'm going to show it to you in a second. But the ZZ plant, I think the ZZ stands for Zanzibar, maybe where it comes from, is a very tolerant low light plant. I have another one in a very, like the second darkest corner of the house, and that thing is exploding. So it does start to kind of lean towards the window up there, but it's still fine. It looks very green. It looks great. It hasn't lost many leaves. And the cool thing about this plant is actually to propagate for this one. Each leaf can turn into a whole plant, which is pretty cool. So this is another really great low light plant. Let me show you this one over here too, because in my other room here, this is a baby from that guy. So, and you can see like the brand new brighter green leaves. It threw all of these up this winter. And if I stand back, you can see this is not near really any window. There's a window all the way over there. And there's a window all the way over there. And it's still doing great. So the ZZ is another very hardy plant. You don't want to overwater these guys. Just pay attention, check the soil, check how it's going along. I water the ZZ like probably every other week. But this baby's doing really good. She's doing really good. Moving on to another plant here. This plant is called a Chinese evergreen, and I'm not going to say she is as light tolerant as the ZZ, because I had her originally before I had the ZZ. I had her in the spot that the ZZ was in because somebody told me this was a very very extreme low light plant, but the ZZ did a lot better. But since I moved her here a little closer to the window, she's doing better. But remember, like I said, the windows in my home, it's still very dim in here. So she is doing better now. Technically considered a low light plant, but I don't think it's as low light as Pothos or the ZZ plant. Okay. And now I am taking you over to the beautiful peace lily, which is also a low light plant. Now, I would say too, when it comes to low light, that this one is still not even as low light tolerant as the Pothos and the ZZ, because I had her in a different spot. And in my apartment where I was living at, that was on the top floor, and we had a lot more light, even though she was in a dark corner, she was putting out flowers. You know, if a plant is doing really well if they start throwing up a lot of flowers. And since I've moved around a few times, I'm trying to find a spot where she could be really happy, but where she was, she hadn't flowered in the last 2 years. So I moved her over here towards the window, and she started to really perk up. Now she's not like on the windowsill, as you can see here. So it's still quite dim where she is, but her pot is so large it won't actually fit on a windowsill. So I have to keep all the plants that I have on my windowsills have very small pots like this fern here. But she's looking a lot better, and I think after I give her some natural fertilizer this spring, which is coming up, I have a feeling she's going to start throwing flowers up. So let's move to I'm going to show you one more that's a really good low light plant. So let's come over here to the kitty in the window. This is my son Jinx. Hello, baby Jinx. Oh, hi. He's saying hello. It's so pretty. And here next to Jinx is a spider plant, which this plant has survived through so much, and it's actually like I think a 4th generation plant, and this one is even putting out babies too. This is one of those plants that just keeps giving and giving and growing more babies, and then it's so easy to propagate this plant. You just stick it in water or dirt and a whole new plant will come up. But this plant has been moved around to some really dark spots, and it has been fine no matter what. I just put it on the windowsill because it has a small pot, because it's one of the children of the mother spider plant that I had. But really, she's fine in a lot of different spots in the house. So I hope if you wanted to try to work with some like growing plants, because I can't recommend enough having plants in your home. They just really affect the energy of a space. Oh, okay, baby. Here are some low light plants for you to try in case you wanted to try growing plants but you feel like your place is really too dark. First, the topmost, I would say ZZ and Pothos more than anything. And then you could try also one of these are really easy, which is the spider plant or peace lily. So I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, I wish you love, serenity, and grace. Namaste.